And good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome into O'Neill's Grill for our weekly Fan and Press Football Luncheon with JMU head coach Mike Houston. My name is Kurt Dudley. Welcome as we arrive to November. It's nice to be atop the Colonial Athletic Association standings. The Dukes at 7-1 after this weekend's 84-7 win at home over homecoming against URI, over 23,000, nearly 24,000. We're at Bridgeport Stadium this past Saturday. Again, the Dukes 5-0 in the CAA. And they are the only unbeaten team in the Colonial, but there is a big pack right behind them. New Hampshire, Richmond, Villanova, Maine, and Stony Brook only have the one loss. So we have 6 teams as we turn into the month of November that are still well within the hunt for the CAA title, and of course that comes an automatic bid to the NCAA playoffs that begin right after Thanksgiving. I did welcome everyone. Also want to welcome those that flew all the way from Arizona to be with us here today. Michelle, thank you for joining us. Michelle, a Harrisonburg native and alum of James Madison, lives out in Arizona now, so it's always good to see her when she comes in for homecoming. So I want to give that little personal plug there. Some other aspects about Saturday's game, in case you missed it, because there was certainly a lot that happened in the ball game. Brian Shore's 5 touchdown tosses tied a single-game record, which was not really that old. It was originally set by Michael Birdsong just a few years ago, and then a guy by the name of Vad Lee decided he wanted to tie it up as well. So 5 touchdown tosses. Lee did break one of Vad's records, and that's for completion percentage, as Vad had a 23 of 25 game one time. That's 92%. Well, Mr. Shore, he went 21 for 22 for 95.5%, establishing that record. Now, with those numbers, he's also leads the country in pass completion percentage now at a whopping 71.3%. He also, as I mentioned, the 5 touchdowns. 3 of those touchdowns were hauled in by Daniel Shealy, who had never caught a touchdown pass in his JMU career. He came in as a quarterback, now playing tight end. I'm sure Coach Houston may talk a little bit more about that. But that also tied a single-game record, doing so with the likes of Daniel Brown, who this week is no longer a Baltimore Raven and is now a Chicago Bear. So Daniel in the NFL, and 2 other former NFL Dukes, Macy Brooks and Gary Clark. So some pretty good company there for Daniel Shealy. Let's see, with also that was a not only a JMU record, but a Bridgeport Stadium record. So no other opponents had done better than that as well. A couple of others, with 12 extra points, Tyler Gray wiped out the 10 hit by Mike Glover and John Coursey. Both of those occurred at Bridgeport Stadium, so that makes those JMU and stadium records as well. The Dukes, among the national rankings, some of the numbers to really pop out at you. Second in scoring at 49.4%. That went up last week, quite obviously. Third down conversions, 56.6. First downs overall. And third in total offense, 529 yards per ball game and 316 rushing per contest. That ranks number 4 in the country. Speaking of national rankings, it's starting to become a little more relevant now, although there are still 3 games to go. The Dukes 7th in the Stats FCS poll. They moved up 1 notch, and they remain number 5 in the FCS coaches poll. Richmond, on the other hand, 6 on both polls, so we will have a top 7 battle this week in Richmond. The Spiders are 7-1 overall. Their only loss was to Stony Brook in CAA play. They do have a win over the Virginia Cavaliers. Coverage this weekend, it's a 3:30 kickoff, sold out at Robbins Stadium there on the campus of the University of Richmond. The coverage begins at 2:30 on the JMU Sprint Network with Dave Thomas, Clint Estes, and yours truly. And there was a change on the TV package. It will be carried by Comcast Sportsnet Mid-Atlantic Plus. So Comcast Sportsnet Mid-Atlantic Plus will have the television coverage for this Saturday's ball game. Let's bring in the head coach of the 7-1 Dukes of James Madison, Mike Houston. Mike.
Thanks a lot for being back with us this week here at O'Neill's. Thank Mo and her staff for all their hospitality each week. And we certainly enjoy having this as a venue for our weekly media luncheon. So obviously a great weekend this past weekend at home for homecoming in Bridgeport Stadium. We had a perfect afternoon with the weather being in the mid-70s to almost 80 degrees at kickoff. So a great fall afternoon and a great crowd on hand of alumni and fans back, and a very boisterous and vocal group as well. So Bridgeforth Stadium was certainly a great stage for our matchup against Rhode Island this past weekend. We've talked about last week our team, our players have had 2 weeks to get ready for this game. I thought they handled the bye week very, very well. I thought we had a great week of practice last week in preparation. But by the end of the week last week, there were two things that were very obvious. Number one, they were very dialed in as we had a very crisp Thursday afternoon practice and Friday afternoon run-through. And the other thing that was apparent was that they were tired of practicing and ready to play. So we got up Saturday morning, and that was probably as energetic as I've seen them on a game day since the opener. And they were certainly ready to go. During pregame warm-ups, it was obvious that we were very focused, and that showed from the first snap of the game all the way until the very last. I thought that our team came out and executed at an extremely high level in all three phases. I thought our kids played very, very hard. I thought we were very physical at the point of contact, and I think that we made plays on the ball as well Saturday as we have made since I've been here. So I thought that some of the things that stood out were I thought we saw a drastic improvement defensively with how sound we were against the running game and the way we attacked the ball in the secondary and challenged the Rhode Island receivers. This resulted in 6 forced turnovers, including 2 interceptions returned for touchdowns. Certainly that was a huge boost to our team on Saturday. And as Kurt talked about with Brian's performance on Saturday, a record-setting day for him with 21 of 22 for 309 and 5 touchdowns. Certainly, if Brian was up here, he would tell you it's a team effort. He was not sacked again for however many weeks it's been in a row, as our offensive line gave him, tremendous time and all afternoon long. And I thought our receivers really made some outstanding plays. But at least 3 or 4 of the big catches in the ball game were balls that were contested catches, where the Rhode Island defender and the JMU wide receiver were there both. And one had to make a play, and fortunately, we had our receivers make the play virtually every time. So a performance like that Brian had on Saturday certainly has other people contributing heavily. So just a great day all around for our team. I thought we played well on special teams. We did have the one mistake on the kickoff return that has already been corrected. Beyond that, I thought it was our best performance of the season on special teams as well. Thought John Miller was going to get out for another punt return. Just barely got caught after a 42-yard return that gave our offense great field position on a drive there in the game. So just a great afternoon. Fantastic homecoming crowd, and I think our alumni and fans were very pleased with the effort of our team on Saturday. So with that, we put that behind us Sunday afternoon and turned our attention immediately towards Richmond. And I know that maybe our alumni and fans have been looking at this game for several weeks now. I can promise you that our kids had not until Sunday. But at this point now, they understand exactly what we're facing. We're facing one of the top teams in the country. We're facing one of the top teams in the CAA. We have to go to their place. They, as with many of our opponents this year, are coming off of a bye, so they've had 2 weeks to get ready for us. They should be healthy and rested. It's a game that's going to receive a lot of attention nationally as well as within the CAA, and should be an outstanding day of college football with 2 teams matched up against each other in a showdown like this in the month of November. So our players will be ready to go on Saturday. They'll be excited for the game, and we're all anxiously anticipating 3:30 Saturday afternoon in Richmond. So with that, any questions about the Rhode Island game or the Richmond game?
Coach, before we turn it over to them, let me also invite members that are folks that are watching on Facebook Live. You can certainly post some questions there. We'll try to work those into our press conference today as well. So now we open it up to members of the media here at O'Neill's Grill for our weekly Fan and Press Luncheon.
David Guzman, WHSV TV in Harrisonburg. Coach, we've talked about how facing teams coming off a bye, I believe it's going to be the 3rd team that you're facing who's coming off a week of rest. What did you learn from the previous 2 meetings facing a team that's had that kind of rest that should help you guys this week?
We don't have any control over it. There's nothing we can do about it. So we're going to prepare and play just like we will for any other team this week. It's nothing that we have any control over, so it's nothing we're going to worry a whole lot about.
Greg Medea, DNR, when you look at Richmond's defense, how similar are they to you guys? Obviously, with Bob Trott coming over, there's going to be some similarities.
Right.
Are they exactly the same, or are they different a little bit?
There's some variations because, as with each team and with each year, your scheme is going to adjust based on what your personnel is. So certainly there's lots of things that we see that is very familiar to us. And at the same time, I think that Coach Trott has done a great job of kind of molding and crafting our defense to fit our personnel here at JMU.
Coach Dave Thomas, ESPN Harrisonburg and JMU Sprint Broadcast Network. Looking back to the Rhode Island game, their average starting field position was there on 28. Yours was your 40. How did that factor into what you did defensively? Did that help you dial up plays to put more pressure on them?
Well, the big thing, you look at the stats and, starting inside your 30-yard line versus starting near midfield, the difference in scoring percentages is drastic. So obviously it changes the way you call the game offensively and defensively. But if you can constantly pin your opponent back deep, it allows you to at least every once in a while make a mistake and it not result in a team being in scoring position. Now certainly defensively we made very few mistakes on Saturday, so I don't think that I don't know how much drastically that affected it, but certainly it makes it easier to call the ball game.
Tommy Keeler, Northern Virginia Daily. Can you talk a little about Richmond's quarterback and kind of what makes him so dangerous?
Well, I think that, obviously he's one of the top players in the league. He's preseason conference player of the year offensively. And you look at, a year and a half ago coming into last year, he was a little bit of a question mark. Very similar to probably what Brian Shore was this year for a lot of people around here. And I think very similarly, he proved himself last year to have the ability to both throw the ball accurately and to get, to extend plays and to make plays with his feet. Very similar to the way Brian has this year. So really, I equate him to be very much like Brian. He's what makes them go. He makes great decisions with where the ball should go. He's a very accurate passer. And when he's pressured, he has the ability to get out of trouble and extend the play, and obviously they have an extremely talented receiving corps.
Following up on that answer, we've talked about the comfort level of Brian Shore all season, and you had a number of receivers and a number of weapons that stepped up on Saturday. What does that say about how everyone else is really growing in comfort level with Brian?
Well, I think that there's no doubt that Brian is the leader of our team and the leader of our offense, and that's a credit to him and the way he approached everything from really from when I got here, but especially once preseason camp started, which we've talked about a lot, and just his growth and development as a competitor and a leader. And I think that there's no doubt that everybody in our football program has tremendous confidence in Brian Shore.
With Laletta and obviously the receiver Brown, is this kind of the best offense you guys have seen since North Carolina?
Repeat that, please.
Richmond, is this the best offense that you guys will have seen since North Carolina, in your opinion?
Probably the most complete, yes, because they have the ability to run the football effectively with 20 and 14, who I think, their backup quarterback, he's a really good football player, and does a lot of different things for them. And you'll see him line up at tailback and really a physical downhill runner. But they have the ability to run the football effectively behind who has one of the better offensive lines in this league. And then obviously the quarterback we've already talked about, has a tremendous ability to throw the football, and he's I don't know what he's averaging, about 300 yards passing a game, or just a little bit under that. But obviously a guy that can make a lot of plays in the passing game. So as far as a complete offense, it probably is the best we've seen since North Carolina.
Coach, in talking about their offense, I've seen a little bit on them, and they seem to throw the deep ball quite a bit. With the fact that they can run the ball and they also throw it short, how does that tax your defense to try to be well-rounded and defend every angle they might try to exploit?
Well, the big thing it forces us to do, and which is what we need to do anyway, is we have to be very, very disciplined, and we have to play our responsibilities. Obviously we're going to see a lot of play action. We're going to see a lot of play action boot. We're going to see a lot of play action, max protection, throw the ball down the field, which is going to require our safeties and our corners to be very disciplined with their eyes and make sure that they are playing their responsibilities in order not to put ourselves in a situation to give up a big play.
Coach, if you could take us back to when you were able to get Bob Trott onto your coaching staff, and just the nature of your relationship with him this season, how he's really been able to step up the defense this year.
Well, Coach Trott and I go back, and I've said it many times before, we go back to when I was a defensive coordinator years ago. He was with the Cleveland Browns or Louisiana Monroe, one of the two, when we first met. We met through my previous boss, Fred Goldsmith, who he also worked for at Duke University. And Coach Trott and I formed a good relationship quickly. And over the years, we spent a lot of time sharing with each other, and me stealing from him a lot. And so we had a great comfort level with each other, both professionally and personally. And so when I got this job, much like when I got hired at the Citadel, I offered him a job. It was one of the first things I did. And so probably the best recruiting effort I did was with his wife, Barbara. In between stops to go see recruits back in January, I was stopping in to see Coach Trott and his wife and trying to convince her how great Harrisonburg was. So, certainly he has been a big part of our improvement as a football team, and especially our improvement as a defense. And he is the consummate professional. He's extremely loyal. He is great with our young men. Our players really gravitate to him. And he is a tireless worker, and so he will ensure that just this Saturday, just like every other Saturday, we will be well prepared for the ball game.
Can you talk a little about Richmond's defense, and what are some of the things that kind of stand out on that side of the ball for them?
Well, I think the biggest thing that stands out with them is they're a fundamentally sound, disciplined defense. They obviously have great personnel. The big D tackle, Craig, 98, is one of the better D linemen in our league. Certainly a big, strong guy that inside is a presence and is going to give us a lot of problems. The thing is, right behind him, sitting there with 46, the linebacker, is a great player and one of the better linebackers in our league. And then they're surrounded by equally talented players all around. So I know that they'll say something about David Jones being out for the year. But the safety that they have filling his spot, is a very capable replacement as a senior. So it's not like they're throwing a rookie out there. I do anticipate them getting number one, their corner that's been out. I anticipate them getting him back for this game. So we should see him there, which will only strengthen their personnel on that side of the ball.
Coach, early in the season, week 1, week 2, week 3, you were talking about how you challenged the team in practice to raise their level and improve their practice habits because it was leading over to some things you saw on the field. How have they answered that as far as maybe are they getting to a point now where your focus is not so much challenging them but coaching them?
Yeah, I thought we practiced very, very well last week. And, kind of back to the challenge, we challenged them after the New Hampshire game that, that fourth quarter is not the way we're going to finish ball games. And so that was a big focus the last 2 weeks. And I thought they responded with the way they practiced, and especially this past week. And I think that you're seeing a lot more consistency with that. You see consistency with, it's all of a sudden you don't see us, having to do things over or correcting them because of effort. Those things that we were doing early in the year, you're not seeing those anymore at practice. And certainly that's carrying over into how hard we're playing and how physical we're playing on the football field, because I think you can look at film from us early in the year and you look at film from last Saturday, and really you see two different teams when it comes to those two things right there.
Coach, I have a couple of questions that are somewhat related, and it does deal with emotion and intensity, and one comes from Chris Lawler. Wants to know how you and your staff will temper the huge excitement and pressure that comes with a game that's coming up this week. And another question from Mark Aarons, again, kind of making sure the intensity is there. And what did you learn from the New Hampshire game that will allow you to employ more intensity than maybe what the fourth quarter might have revealed?
Well, the big thing that from the New Hampshire game is, and I think that our kids demonstrated that this week, and we've talked about it, is if we are fortunate enough to get a lead, we cannot let our focus slip. We cannot worry about what the score is in the ball game. We cannot worry about anything other than the next play right in front of us. And that's been our message all year, but I do think that the New Hampshire fourth quarter may have been a jolt to our players that, this is not just a cliche. This is the way you have to play. Whether you're ahead or whether you're behind, the only play that you can control is the next one, so you got to keep your focus right there. So hopefully that's the lesson they learned there. As far as the first question, I'm not worried about our players being ready to play on Saturday. I'm not worried about how hard they're going to play. I'm not worried about the intensity. They're going to have all those things. Fortunately, our staff and myself have had a lot of experience in big ball games and a lot of experience in top 10 matchups. So the big thing to remember in these is just focusing on, keeping calm, keeping focused on doing what you're supposed to do. Don't try to do too much. Do your job. And really focus on performing fundamentally down after down, just like we do every other game, because this game is, at the end of the day, no different than any other game as far as what it's going to take to win.
Anything else from local media? Well, we got a couple other actually have come in from Facebook. Ed Keynes up in New England wants to know, will there be anything new that you can reveal offensively this weekend?
I don't know. We'll see about 3:30 on Saturday.
There you go, Ed. You'll have to watch. And Ed does keep up with us very much here. Also from Neil Woodward, has there been any discussion of using Connor Mitch at another position, or would that be too much of a risk?
I don't think there's much discussion of that right now.
All right, so no discussion at all on that. Any other questions from the media here? Anyone here at O'Neill's? All right, one other thing before Coach will wrap it up here is that next week we have a triple header here. We will have Coach Houston to lead things off, and we will also invite in for our first basketball Fan and Press Luncheon, as Lou Rowe will be in here this afternoon, or that afternoon I should say, as well as Sean O'Regan, as the college basketball season for both JMU men's and women's basketball begins on November the 11th. Season tickets are on sale now, by the way. Thanks again, Coach. Appreciate it.
One last thing before we get out of here. Mo wanted me to tell you, anybody that can't make it to Richmond for the game, O'Neill's will have the game on and will be packed on Saturday, ready to cheer the Dukes on. Go Dukes.
Go Dukes. Thank you again, Coach. And thanks to Monica and Tim O'Neill for hosting us here at our weekly Fan and Press Luncheon, O'Neill's Grill, every Tuesday here in Harrisonburg. Thanks again. The Dukes and Richmond, Saturday, 3:30, the kickoff.